Finding Common Battlegrounds is an attempt by two brothers, one conservative, the other progressive, to have civil conversations about politics with a little help from their friends.
All right, welcome to another episode of Finding Common Battleground. This is the podcast dedicated to civil debate and finding the common ground that we have rather than focusing on what we disagree on, because that's easy. It's hard to find the stuff we do agree on, but the funny thing is there's actually probably more that we agree on than we disagree on, and it's a shame that the media doesn't focus more on that. But anyway, our format today, we're going to be just going through, I'm going to be peppering Ryan and Josh, the liberal and conservatives who will be representing each side with a number of questions, and we'll just be talking about each one. So, yeah, this is just discussion today. And so we're just kind of shooting the breeze and see what we come up with. I'll be going into, so I'm going to take this was Ryan's question on the article you sent. So FDA is moving forward with the menthol cigarette ban. This is interesting, and I think you had said, Ryan, didn't you say Canada had already done this or was looking at doing this?
Other countries have certainly talked about doing this. It's somewhat controversial in the U.S. And gets tied into race, which is interesting. But yeah, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So a little background. So yeah, it was talking about banning menthol and then flavored cigarettes. And what I don't understand. So I'm not a smoker, right? So I don't. What is a menthol? Is that most cigarettes, or is that only a certain?
It's a subset of cigarettes. So They've already banned most flavored cigarettes or put heavy restrictions on them because they didn't want kids being attracted to smoking because they taste good, right? Because I've never smoked, right? Me either. So none of us are actually smokers, but you've all smelled cigarettes, right? And the smell to me is just horrific. Like pipe tobacco, that's different. I actually really like the smell of pipe tobacco. I don't know. That's just weird. I've never used it, right? But it smells really good. But cigarettes just smell horrific. And the taste isn't great. Plus, it's really irritating to the throat and the lungs, obviously. Right. But menthol actually reduces that irritation. Okay. So menthol actually makes them more addictive, which is kind of interesting. But for first-time smokers, if you smoke a menthol cigarette, it actually minimizes the irritation and it tastes better. So it makes it easier to actually start smoking in the first place. And then it becomes more addictive. Yeah.
The impetus is they're protecting kids by banning menthol, and the flavored ones, is that basically the idea?
The flavored ones in particular, menthol, because it's more addictive, it's harder to stop. And there's some evidence that it's actually more harmful for you. So they're trying to crack down on it. Where it gets complicated is, I think the stat I saw is something like 80% of African-American smokers smoke menthol cigarettes.
Oh, interesting.
So it would disproportionately affect Black smokers.
Racist.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so
is that racist to try to save Black lives?
This is why I thought this was an interesting topic, right? Like this is really complicated and weird because there's a lot of opposition from the Black community.
Right. There'll be outcry from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And part of the reason why there'll be outcry is because yes, if they ban them, it'll be much harder to get, but that doesn't mean that there wouldn't be a black market for menthol cigarettes, right? Like I'm sure you could still get them in some places, but then you're making illegal something that Black individuals are more likely to use.
Right. And then
they're going to be more likely to get arrested for it, right? So you're basically increasing the odds that Black individuals are going to get arrested for doing something that they're doing right now.
Do you really think anyone's going to get arrested for having a menthol cigarette? I think this is just a matter of like reducing the supply, right? Or just making it less available.
Yeah. And that idea makes sense. I think the bigger question, which I actually am really interested in both of your takes on this, is should we be banning things that are detrimental to people, right? Because cigarettes, like I get the idea. Cigarettes give you a high, but in the process, of course, they kill people, right? Like the evidence is just overwhelming, right? They're going to cause all sorts of cancers. They cause all sorts of complications. They increase blood pressure. Like all of
the bigger problem is they can kill people that aren't smoking with the secondhand smoke. Cause asthma and emphysema, whatever.
They cause all sorts of problems, right? So then the question becomes:
that's the premise for drugs being illegal, right? Initially, is like they harm you, therefore we make them illegal. And
it depends on the drug and the history, because it's really complicated. Well,
exactly,
marijuana is a whole weird issue, right?
But my point is that. And then there's been kind of pushback of like, well, CBD and this and that, and we push back, right? So. But that was the initial thought. It was like, oh, these are harmful, ban them, right? Make them illegal. And then, but you have like this criminalization and people going to jail for years because they were just selling some pot, and it's a big thing.
5 years in the federal pen because I smoked a menthol cigarette. And that's crazy.
But I agree. Should we be banning cigarettes?
No. It's a drug, right? So I get the take that you're trying to protect people from their own stupidity, but who is the great arbiter that gets to decide on all of these issues on what's harmful and what's not? Obviously it's harmful, but this is simple in my mind. Legalize all drugs. Okay. And if people take all that money that we use to enforce the border and to lock people up and just open clinics. Say this is the second time I've referenced the Swiss. They do a couple things really well. This is one of the things they do really well. Ryan knows about Portugal statistics. I think 1 in 4 people in Portugal were addicted to cocaine or something a couple years ago. Yeah. And then they legalized it, and it dropped within like a year or two. It dropped to less than 5%. Huge reduction. So if you just help people, legalize everything, don't throw them in jail because they have a problem, because it's so stupid. The fixes are obvious. Don't be legalizing more stuff that people want to do. Sorry.
Interesting. I'm assuming you'd be okay with age restrictions, right? And
products, because you gotta protect kids, because kids are idiots. That's why we got
there
rid
are
of
a lot of people are idiots too, Josh.
Yeah. Sure, but you can't.
But that's their right to be an idiot.
That's their right to be an idiot. Okay, you got to protect kids. That's why we got rid of that camel, right? Because that camel made kids want to smoke. You don't have adults. You don't have adults walking down the street going, "That camel, he looks awesome. I'm 50 years old, but I'm going to start smoking just because that camel looks cool."
Right? You're talking about the camel guy, the guy,
Joe Camel.
Joe Camel.
We all grew up with.
But so that does raise, I think, a variant of this question, which is, it sounds like you're okay with not necessarily banning cigarettes, but putting restrictions on them, right? So
just for kids. You got to protect kids from their own stupidity. But what about
like the packaging stuff, right? So a lot of countries have actually put on cigarettes like the big warnings, but now they also require that you put a picture on there showing people who have had like their throat removed, right? And all the cancer that you can get, and pictures of.
Do you have any stats on if that's been effective or not?
It is actually pretty effective.
Well, I think if you put the warning
down, smoking is going down. But what about making it more expensive too? Right. So
syntax, that's.
Well, I mean, I'm asking, like, I'm genuinely asking, because it turns out the marketing, right? So those pictures and ads, every time you buy a package of cigarettes and you see this picture of like some dude who's got, massive cancer and like half his face has been removed, that is a little bit of a deterrent. The warning, I get it. But if you increase the price as well, it becomes an additional deterrent is the idea, because we don't want to make it. And I'm not disagreeing with you, Josh. I think we have already said, like, we agree we should legalize all drugs, and then like we can put the money in other places. But it's
the following video has graphic content. Some you might be disturbed by this.
Yeah,
it's like, we're gonna let you watch, but we'll let you know. I've actually heard that putting that warning,
viewer discretion advised.
Increases viewership, because people are like, oh, it's gonna be good.
Well, that's part of the allure for drugs, right? It's some secret dark thing you can do, and it's covert and makes you feel like a rebel. If you just legalize it, then a lot of that thrill just disappears.
Yeah.
Like, why am I
When
doing
your
this?
grandma's doing weed, it's just not as provocative.
Yeah, it's not quite as cool.
Which is
Hey,
totally
Jimmy,
fair.
want to come do some weed with me? Like, no, I think I'm safe to say no, Grandma.
Yeah. But what about, making them expensive? So, and by expensive, I don't mean like millions of dollars, so only rich people can smoke. But, if you increase the price through taxes,
they've already done that,
haven't they?
They have.
Yeah.
They have. But
I did
particularly
want
if
to
you use
say
that
one
tax to
thing.
put towards healthcare.
But yeah. Megan went to they had a speaker at her work that was talking about it was talking, I think it wasn't the National Heart Association or something like that. Anyway, they were talking about smoking, and they were saying how it had been going down for years. And they were like, we've almost got it. And then I guess like vaping is kind of brought it back for you, especially for youth, is what they were saying. Like, and they were just kind of bemoaning like that they've taken like, they had like 3 steps forward and they've taken like 2 steps back in the last decade because of vaping and how popular that's become. And
vaping, they also have flavors, right? So it makes it more appealing for young people. So that's also been a bit of a problem. But so what would be, both of your takes, right? We don't ban the menthol. We don't ban cigarettes at all. What do we do? Just let it be?
Yeah, I mean, how do you? What kind of prison state are we gonna live in when we dictate what people can eat and consume and can watch?
Well, but we already do that. I mean, that's literally what the FDA does, right? Like, we want the FDA. Trust me, we want the FDA. We want restrictions on what people can be given in their food.
But if they understand the danger involved, I mean, that's what the FDA is doing, right? They're making sure that corporations aren't selling something that's poisonous and saying, "Oh no, this is good for you. It'll make you live 1,000 years." Right? That's what the FDA is doing. So if people understand the dangers associated with cigarettes, who are we to say no? You can't do that.
Yeah. Here's my take. The FDA. I mean, whatever. If you go into a grocery store, almost like 75% of the food in there is poison and is killing literally killing Americans.
Okay, it's a little hyperbole, Tom. What do you mean by poison?
But not really. I'm drinking poison right now.
Yeah, soda pop, sugar. We have an obesity epidemic. We have a diabetes epidemic, and these are all FDA approved foods that you can buy on the shelf. So,
well, it's not like the FDA gives them a thumbs up, like, "Hey, drink soda," right? It's just, this is not literally poison. But
that's the point, and that's why I'm kind of agreeing with Josh. It's like we've got so much garbage already, and it's like that you're like, what, you're going to ban this one thing, right? It's like, let people, and I'm saying people let people do what they want. It's horrible, and I'm saying the FDA, I'm like, they're approving crap left and right that's complete garbage. So it's like,
that's true. Right. And if you are going to ban one thing, it should be cigarettes, because they're disgusting. I hate smelling them. I hate being around people that smoke them because they stink. But again, your rights end where mine begin. So if you decide that's what you want to do for you, who am I to say no? Sorry, if you want to go kill yourself, okay. I mean, you shouldn't. It's gross. You shouldn't do it. But
I was at this party when I was younger, and there was this girl. We were hanging outside, and then we made out, and I was like, she was a smoker, and I figured that out during the kiss, and I was like, oh, I was like, we're done. So if that's not reason enough, right there.
Seriously,
you don't get to kiss Tom Triplett. Nope. That is the issue with smoking.
That's why I didn't. That's why I don't smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can kiss Tom
someday.
It's always been my motivation.
But
he is a DILF. He is a DILF. He admitted this. He is.
In all seriousness, you don't. It does restrict your options, right? It's in my opinion, it's the same as like drinking soda pop and getting fat, right? It's like not going to help your social life, and it's going to restrict your social life and restrict your health and restrict other things.
It's not good for you, but
it's your choice.
Well, I mean, if we start cracking down on this stuff, where does it stop? We ban soda pop, we ban all fructose, all artificial sugars. We start mandating exercise. Okay, big brother.
Yeah, cool. All right, that's really interesting. Any other thoughts, Ryan?
No, I'm in the same boat. I thought it was really interesting that they're talking about it. There's already pushback from the people who would be most directly affected, I think. But I think I'm in the same boat as Josh on this. And it's because we both take the same position of if we legalize it, then we can put the money, right? Because there's tax revenue that comes from that. Right. So if you're selling it legally, you tax it, and then you turn around and use that tax revenue to actually help people with addiction. And I think that's a far more effective approach, as the evidence shows, right? It's just an empirical issue. So when the data strongly supports something, I'm on board.
I would just add, there's a Norm Macdonald skit of him quitting smoking, which might be the funniest skit of all time, where he's like, yeah, when I was a kid, I started smoking because I thought it would look cool. And wouldn't you know it, I did look cool. So it was great. So go look up Norm's skit. It's absolutely hilarious.
Wow.
Talks about why you shouldn't smoke.
Just quickly, I pulled up trends in cigarette smoking rates. In 1965, 42.4% of adults smoked.
Wow. 65?
In 1965.
42.
Amazing.
That's crazy.
42%. And as of 2018, it's 13.7%.
Yeah, we're trending in the right way. So why, again, another non-issue the government's throwing out there. We're trending in the right direction.
Well, I mean, I think we would all agree it would be better if nobody smoked, but
sure,
the pathway to that, I don't know if it's.
It'd be better if nobody killed each other either.
Yeah,
we should make that illegal.
Better if
Good
nobody
idea,
was liberal.
Tom. We should do that.
We should make that legal. No liberals.
No liberals. Yeah. I think Josh disagrees with that too.
I do actually.
Josh, we may not always agree when it comes to politics, even though we're trying, but there is one thing we agree on. There is only one way to clean up after going to the bathroom, and that's with a Lux bidet.
I've been a proud owner of a Lux bidet for years. I have literally owned a Lux Neo 320 since 2013. That's the warm water model. Talk about happy, fun, poopy time. When I leave the bathroom, I know I'm clean and ready to talk politics in a civilized manner.
Exactly. Using a toilet without a bidet is about as uncivilized as it gets. Civil conversations demand civil hygiene practices.
And that is why our listeners should get themselves a Lux bidet.
And just to be clear, Lux is not supporting one side or the other in this podcast. They support civil conversations and clean butts.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Finding Common Battlegrounds. The music is by Ben Sound. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not those of their employers. For more information or more episodes, you can find us at findingcommonbattlegrounds.com.